The question of whether video games can be considered art has long been up for debate among both fans of the medium and its critics. While many games contain the semblance of a narrative, with some works undoubtedly placing more emphasis on this aspect than others, their stories require by the medium's nature to be told through different techniques than those employed in works in literature or film. Games invite consumers to be direct participants in their narratives, an antithesis of the observer status they are delegated to when they read a novel or watch a film. This divergence places games in a position which allows them to be intrinsically more immersive than other forms of media, often placing the responsibility of pacing and plot movement entirely on the players themselves. Not all games attempt to deliver powerful, engaging narratives, and nor should they be expected to. Just as art house films or pieces of literature generally sell less than blockbusters, so too do artistic games often enjoy smaller audiences. Many of said games, however, take advantage of the medium's capacity for interactive storytelling, placing an emphasis on the player's agency and relying on choices and their impact to craft narratives which transcend the artistic pigeonhole which games have been assigned to. I'm Brent Flakes, and I hope you'll join me as I briefly dissect some of the qualities which makes video games truly unique and immersive experiences. Player agency is a facet of nearly every genre of game, as the medium is by its very nature reliant on the actions of its consumers, but it is perhaps most prevalent in role-playing games, whose mechanics are constructed to react to players' choices. In the opening sequences of nearly every RPG, players are prompted to choose what qualities their characters will have, games often forcing them to make sometimes daunting decisions before they can even participate in gameplay. In Fallout New Vegas, for example, players must choose their character's special attributes, each one providing benefits for certain styles of play. In addition, players are prompted to customize their character's appearance and choose from a handful of perks, each of which alters your capabilities or experience in the game world in some way. All of this occurs before players can even begin to explore the game's sprawling, post-apocalyptic desert landscape, a virtual playground whose inhabitants respond to and are affected by players' choices, whether through combat or through dialogue. In many other genres of games, however, such as shooters or any other kind of action game, players are subject to much more linear narratives, progressing through various stages or levels and given pieces of plot along the way. As a result, players often have much of their freedom of choice stripped away from them. While they are still free from a gameplay perspective to tackle challenges as they please, their choices generally do not directly impact the narrative in any way. The games industry in recent years has seen a surge in titles which attempt to combine mechanics from both traditional RPGs and action games. One such example is the Witcher series, whose most recent installment featured a relatively fast-paced and polished combat system compared to other games in the genre, as a large percentage of one's time in the game is spent hunting and slaying various monsters which plague its vast open world. Despite this, The Witcher 3 managed to be very much a role-playing game. Players, taking on the role of the game's protagonist, Geralt of Rivia, are forced to make choices in matters ranging from trivial peasant disputes to political conflicts, some of which directly impact the game's grim fantasy world as well as its plot and conclusion. The Dark Souls series takes an entirely different approach to the action RPG format, however. While players can interact with the inhabitants of the series' various locales, it is through the simplest dialogue system possible. Choice in Souls games is more focused on players' performance in combat. Underlying mechanics, which seem initially centered around combat, is a progression system, which allows for the creation of nearly any type of character imaginable. The series' infamous level of difficulty provides a true feeling of accomplishment when players manage to surmount the various challenges they are confronted with, whether through sheer endurance or by gradually making their characters, and by extension themselves, more capable of facing them. Open-world games, returning to Fallout New Vegas and The Witcher 3 as examples, provide players with a further opportunity for free choice. In such games, players are often dropped into sprawling environments and provided with a main quest to follow which, though necessary to progress the main narrative, is not mandatory. Players can choose whether to follow the path the game is laid out for them or to embark on their own journey, allowing them to explore the game's nooks and crannies and pace their adventures at their own leisure, creating a personal and therefore more immersive story. While not open world, BioShock stands as a prime example of a traditional first-person shooter that implements RPG mechanics. While players are not given the freedom to fully personalize their character, they are given a wide range of powers, called plasmids, to choose from, allowing them to play in almost any way they see fit. Additionally, despite the game's relatively linear plot, players must make decisions which fall on a binary spectrum of good or evil, and that ultimately dictate which ending they will receive. Choice is not present only in this aspect of the game, however. Acknowledging the linearity common in most FPS titles, BioShock's narrative makes players question how much of their choices are made of their own volition, its earth-shattering climax serving to make the game exponentially more immersive and standing as a testament to its clever writing. Choice, then, is growing increasingly more prominent in games as the medium progresses. As the line between genres begins to blur, players are confronted with decisions in games which had long been devoid of them. While a large portion of games remain relatively empty of much opportunity for choice, this is by no means a bad thing. Games are, at their most basic level, meant to be entertaining. The true artistic potential of games, however, lies in their interactivity. Encouraging consumers to become active participants opens up innumerable opportunities for truly personal experiences that can be more deeply moving than watching events unfold without their control.